Detroit marches on the title of best team in the NFL. Perhaps we'll do best win, worst loss, and also a little bonus coverage after I do the college football top 12. I want to talk about this Embiid story from the locker room over this past weekend. We'll do more on that. Chiefs, Lions, Super Bowl today with McShay. How many other teams in the NFC should you be afraid of? What the hell is going on with Trevor Lawrence? A deeper breakdown on Penn State, Ohio State with him, and also Carson Beck in Georgia's win against Florida. We've got life advice for you with the gang extended here. Enjoy the pod. Week 9. Best win is Detroit at Green Bay, without question. Detroit continues their march towards the title of best team in the NFL. Despite Kansas City's perfect record, I think we could talk about the defensive differences between the two teams, but Detroit's up 24-3 in the third quarter. Rainy at Green Bay. You know, one of the things with Detroit's schedule, when you looked at Goff and you thought, how many times is this guy even going to play in any kind of weather? Well, this is the first time they actually played in a non-dome situation. I don't know, maybe if there was a roof that was open at one of these points, but, you know, they gave up 150 more yards, but it didn't matter because they were doing all the Dan Campbell stuff here again. They got a pick six. They converted both fourth downs. One of them 4th and 1 at the Green Bay 15-yard line, running it right in for a touchdown. Green Bay had 20 first downs in this one, but they were able to control most of the game. And with that kind of score, you're like, this isn't even really close. Now, granted, Jordan Love's dealing with this groin injury that we saw lingering constantly throughout last week. And I think you can see step up or just show itself in certain moments, despite Love, like looking at the entire game. You're like, all right, that's not so bad. But it's just, you know, no Hutchinson. And then to do this defensively against Green Bay and all these receivers, Hutchinson, who had a 25% pressure rate this season, was the highest we've seen from a player in 5 years. The defensive numbers are still not exactly where you'd want them to be, even with the investment in the secondary. The opposing yards per play is 5.7. Which is the bottom third of the NFL. Last year, it was 5.7 for the entire season, but that was actually 29th. So that ranking is a little bit higher, even if the opponent's yards per play is the same. But, you know, they've been better, like a lot better defensively against 3 of the last 4 opponents here. And I just think it's one of those wins where you're like, I don't know if anybody in the NFC is even close to this team. They got Minnesota. Granted, it was a tough one. You know, they gave us some points there, but the last month, the defense has been getting better just based on what the opponents aren't doing, even with this Hutchinson injury. So, look, all the love for them, and they deserve all of it because that was dominant in a condition where you were like, is Green Bay going to be more suited for this than Detroit will be with all these fast guys and the offense and all the precision, all the stuff? It was like, nope, actually Detroit's totally in control of this thing. All right, playoff seeding. Do you know where your Arizona Cardinals are this Monday morning? You probably don't. They are a 4 seed in the NFC, 5-4 record, first place in the NFC. The only team in the NFC West, well, first place in the NFC West, right? The only team in the NFC West that's undefeated, so they're 2-0, they're the division. And it's the latest in a season they've been in sole possession of first place since November of 21. So it's been 3 years. So the comeback field goal against the Chargers. And the previous 2 weeks, Arizona had these games, especially the Miami game, where it was a bit like the Jacksonville-Philly game that we had just yesterday, which I'll get into because there's just always this one game on a Sunday where you think, okay, I cannot pay attention to this one anymore. It's fine. And then you're at the end going, is this possible? Like, this is going to happen? This other team has a chance to win this thing? And I think nothing would have been grosser for Philly fans for them to blow that game to Jacksonville, considering the score and the control of that game. However, with Arizona, they're in the game with the Chargers, really good defense with the LA Chargers, but they find a way, kick the game-winning field goal. Okay. Miami, they're down 27-18. It looks like Miami's getting Tua back. Good news for everybody. Miami's going to get a win on the board against, you know, kind of a week-to-week fighting Arizona team where you didn't know really what, like that Bills game that they lost. You probably felt better about them, but they get off to the 1-3 start. Well, they've won 3 in a row, and they were dominant yesterday against the Bears, sacking Caleb Williams 6 times. And I think the best part about this is that Arizona did it by running the football, outgaining the Bears on the ground 213-69, and Kyler not really being like having to be Superman the entire time like he has in some of these drives in other games. They were just in control of this one from the jump and then beat up on Caleb the entire time. So they've won 3 in a row. They're in first place in their division and actually a 4 seed despite better records of some of the teams behind them. Some quick stuff on the Chicago part of this. We know that Tyreek Stevenson, number 29, who was, infamously connected with the Hail Mary where he's turned around and getting into it with the crowd while Jane Daniels is actually scrambling around trying to get the pass off. And then he comes over and tips it, tipped up, whatever, Hail Mary, they catch it, lose the whole deal. So then there was 2 different versions of the story, which I think are probably the same, though. And there's always a lesson in this that I think you should remember if you care about this stuff a lot, right? And granted, it's what I do for a living, so it's sort of important. But Jay Glazer had a piece on the pregame show that I was watching on Fox where it was like, hey, here's the deal. Like, Tyreek got demoted, and then he took himself out of practice and, whatever, we'll pay attention. So, like, now that's planting the seed of, like, okay, this might be really bad. He played yesterday, and to his credit, Tyreek, I don't know if it was real or if it was fake, but he was doing it. He was letting everybody know as they came off the sideline, like, hey, let's get it. He was being involved. He was doing the things you would want to see somebody do, whether genuine or completely calculated. Those would be the things you would want to do. But what happens whenever there's kind of the national part of it, and it's a story that maybe the team doesn't want out, then they'll go to somebody that covers the team locally and kind of say that the national thing isn't right, but the story basically sounds like it's the same. And this is probably way too much on this thing at this point, but I just wondered how much it would really matter for a Bears team that record-wise probably got some teams at the right time. And to have Caleb look like beginning of the year Caleb, where he's getting his ass handed to him again, is probably not where you want to be halfway through the season. But the damage control of, well, that's not really what happened. It's like, well, what happened? This guy asked out of practice after you demoted him from just starting defensive back position, correct? Well, yes, but no. And it happens in every sport. It happens all the time where they're not even refuting that what the first guy said was wrong. They'll just find somebody else to tell a different version of sometimes the same thing as if that's controlling the message. Anyway, whatever. Lesson out there for you. Philadelphia 6-2, 6th seed in the NFC. Currently, they lose the tiebreaker to Minnesota because of strength of record stuff. Like, they go deep on that tiebreaker. Probably won't matter, so don't worry about it. They've won 4 in a row. I talked up the Cincy win last week because I thought it was a really good win. And for them to just be dominant in the second half and tear it up after, look, Philly had 3 possessions because of how ridiculous Cincinnati's opening drive was, I believe. So only 3 offensive possessions for the Eagles in that game, still able to put up that many points and just feeling better about them getting more possessions, things turning over a little quickly in that second half. So at home against Jacksonville, better health with the skill guys, up 22-zip. This is a walkover. The Saquon Barkley run really is that special. Like, you can't watch it enough because the last move for him to kind of line up, like, I think I'm going to jump backwards and hurdle this guy coming behind me. One, that you could actually be positioned that way on a football field and not be scared to death with your back towards defenders, but then to hurdle over somebody in reverse, kind of back to those original things of why Saquon, when he's coming out of the draft, like, okay, this guy's actually a little bit different. And this is why you can take a running back this high. Well, at least those were the arguments back then. There's also one of my favorite players in this game. I don't know what happened on the second down. So the 3rd and 22 that Hurts hits Devontae Smith is an absurd throw, catch, whole thing. I thought that ball was out because it looked like he put so much on that football. I was like, is that going to be back through the end zone? And it happens sometimes on some of those throws with quarterbacks. You're like, oh, I put too much on that. And it's just the receivers are so good. And it's exactly what they're supposed to do. And it's actually the perfect throw. And nobody else is going to get that ball except for the receiver. Except on second down, he overthrew it. And I thought, was he overthrowing that? Or did he just miss that badly where the fan caught it and then spiked it? People were wondering why didn't he just keep the football? I'm pretty sure they're probably going to go up to you and ask for the football back because it wasn't actually given to you. So those 2 plays, you're up 22-0. You're like, all right, Philly's got this, except they don't. I think the 3rd and 22 made it 28, by the way. So Jacksonville's down 28-22 with 2:11 to go. let's run through these throws. So Jacksonville gets on the board with a touchdown. Then there's a fumble touchdown. So now it's 22-16. Then we mentioned that 3rd and 22 shot that makes it 28-16. Jacksonville scores again. But here's what I thought was really alarming through all this. Because Trevor Lawrence still has numbers that'll tell you, like, this year is better than any other year that he's had. Clearly, his first year was terrible. There was enough of a second-year jump to feel good about him, in combination with the fact of who he was in college and the kind of prospect that people talked about him being coming out. Although I do remember Dilfer telling us he was a long loader. All right. Write that one down. Long loader. Anyway, Jacksonville down 28-23. It's 1st and 10 after that missed field goal at the Jacksonville 47. Trevor Lawrence throws it to Washington, incomplete. That was a miss. Throws it short middle to Ingram. That was a miss. 2-minute warning. Incomplete pass up the right side, but it was pass interference on this one. Now, I don't know if the PI was the reason why the shot looked like it wasn't even close to anybody, but I don't know if I want to give Lawrence the benefit of the doubt. We could maybe on that one. Then deep right, incomplete, miss, and then short left. That converted and got him a first down. So that was like the one throw out of this entire stretch where you go, okay, because these other ones are just behind the guy, not even close to anybody. Then on 1st and 10 at the Philly 13, you're down 28-23. It's first down. He throws an interception into the end zone, Nakobe Dean, my man, that is the kind of throw that you have to make on 4th and 10 in that spot. And maybe not even that, or maybe fourth and goal from the 8, where there's no chance of even, like, the game is basically going to be over because there's no chance of getting another first down. The carelessness of what that throw was, in combination with how many other throws just on this possession alone, he just was missing everybody. And it kind of made me feel like, well, is that why they were getting touchdowns before? Because they were like that thing that we've talked about in the past, where when quarterbacks are just so carefree because they're losing, they're down 3 scores here. So it doesn't really matter. So you're going to be a little bit looser with the ball. But then as soon as it's like a real possession again, where the outcome of every throw matters, does he turn back into the guy that you don't trust? That possession was awful. The last interception, also awful. And it did make me think, too, like, after seeing his second-year jump, I'm going, okay, this makes more sense based on the guy we watched on Saturdays. But is his $200 million guaranteed the second worst quarterback contract? Or is there still hope for this guy? I don't know. Best wins, Detroit. Worst loss, I don't think anything's going to top the Texans losing to the Jets. I think that's the worst loss of anything we saw. And nothing really trumped that yesterday. If Philly had blown that game, that could have been it. Dallas is bad again. 27-13, late touchdown against Atlanta, 27-21, makes it seem better. Apparently, Dak reading lips on the sideline. We effing suck. I thought Tua played really well yesterday. So no turnovers from Tua in back-to-back games, even though he had 3 fumbles that he did not lose against Arizona. 0 lost fumbles in these 2 games. And then a 14-play touchdown drive for 97 yards after the Allen interception off the Keon Coleman tip, which was just an amazing play by Jalen Ramsey. But, Miami goes up 10-3, and you're wondering if they're finally going to get Buffalo, because Tua's only got them one other time while beating up on the other 2 teams in New England and the Jets in the division. But nope, can't beat Buffalo. And Tyreek Hill has had 1 touchdown since week 1, and Jalen Waddle got his first TD of the season. Look at those guys' numbers. I mean, even with Tua coming back, it's nice to see things cranked up. I guess against New England, those guys had a few more targets there. The Saints have fired Dennis Allen. Quite a departure from the Clint Kubiak love 2 weeks into the season where they were scoring 1 million points. No one could stop them. Perfect marriage of OC and quarterback. Everybody's on the same page. And then you lose 7 in a row. And granted, Carr got hurt and it was disrupted with the Rattler deal. And then you were on to the other kid from Fresno, I think. Allen, 18-25 with the Saints. I got to tell you this. I was happy for Bryce Young. I was just happy to see Bryce Young get a win yesterday. It looked like he was having fun playing football again for the first time I think I've seen since he was at Alabama. Okay, college football top 12. This is, I don't know how it's going to look with the committee here because there's this SEC bunching at the end that'll all probably take care of itself. That I, as of right now, want to avoid, but I just don't know how you consistently can stay to one rule without breaking that rule to get 12 teams into this. I have Oregon 1 like everybody else, although the coaches poll, there's one coach that did not vote Oregon number 1 as they easily handled Michigan. Georgia's 2 in both polls. I have Georgia 2 as well. Carson Beck is a mess, though. I mean, he was a mess again in that Florida game. He threw 3 more picks. It was 2020. Florida is definitely a little bit better now this year than they were at the beginning of the year. Maybe the last time you saw them, Miami was handing it to them. So they're better than they were to start the year. But 2020 is probably not what you're expecting out of Georgia. Some people who still think they're the best team in the entire country. Ohio State, stop me if you've heard this before, gets it done against Penn State again, 2013. And they needed a run clock, a ton of clock. I think they got it back with like 5 minutes left, and they got 4 first downs. And you could tell that drive, them being able to run the football, then Will Howard converting that last one, knowing they're going to run out the clock, victory formation. Those guys were fired up about that win, which also makes me think that Ohio State either was that worried about their own offensive line issues. I think also in combination with how much they respected Penn State as an opponent. The AP and coaches poll have Miami at 4. I'm going to have Texas at 4. I'd argue that Michigan, Oklahoma, Vandy, maybe not Michigan. This is crazy. Is Oklahoma or Vandy better than any single win that Miami has this year? Miami's going to go the entire season not playing anybody ranked. And by the way, Duke, I mean, how weird was that game? They were down 28-17 to Duke and then outscored them 36-3 the rest of the way. They're going to go 12-0. They've got Georgia Tech, Wake, and Syracuse to finish this up. They will be a top 4 seed, I would imagine, depending on what happens. I obviously was holding out hope for Clemson still, and they get absolutely smashed by Louisville. They made it look closer at the end of this game with a couple scores. But yeah, this one was 33-14 there before a late touchdown. So the ACC had kind of a weird wake-up call weekend, especially when you include the Pitt SMU result, where Pittsburgh got trounced in this one as well. And it was ugly. I mean, it was 31-3 at halftime, SMU. So we'll have SMU ranked there. So yeah, I flipped Texas and Miami just based on who they've beaten, but Miami's going to be in this thing, and it looks even better. They're going to get through the ACC title game. Well, it's happening around them. All right, so Penn State. I put Penn State 6. Look, I don't really want to beat up on Penn State today because I don't really know that that's, I know they never beat them. We've already talked about the history here. They just rarely get them. Franklin doesn't have a great record against these good teams. I'll admit, too, I think Fox goes overboard with the pro Big Ten stuff because they think they're counteracting this ESPN SEC stuff. And I think that, I don't know. I think it's kind of a waste of time. And when they put the graphic up a couple of weeks ago where it was Penn State would have 6 playoff appearances, 3 more than any other team if it were 12 teams throughout all this. And it's well, that doesn't mean anything. It just means that they beat up on all the people that they play on their schedule. But I actually think Penn State's better this year. I think the USC win was a tough win despite what USC's record is. Maybe you're dismissive of it. Up 10-0 in this one, you think you have them. I know then it ends up being this deal where you're pissed because you think oh, it should have been a day game. It should have been a night game and all these other, whatever. They were in it. It wasn't like they were embarrassed, but yeah, it's a little too repetitive. And now Penn State probably is still in the playoff if they stay clean against Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. So actually, they're going to get into the playoff in the version that I was always so upset about. Number 7, Indiana. So Indiana is actually in first with Oregon, 6-0, both in the conference, 9-0 overall. Trounced Michigan State, who's a 4-5 football team. And we'll see what happens at Ohio State. The crazy thing will be if the loser's definitely in, right? Because Indiana would be 11-1, and then that would mean we'd have an Oregon-Ohio State rematch, right? Is that better for Indiana? I don't know. If they get Ohio State and they're 12-0 going into it, then they're probably in anyway. the Indiana thing has like really changed up a lot of this stuff where it's going to be a boost. It's like it's going to be an extra boost for Ohio State, but Ohio State's already going to be in now anyway because their only loss is to the number one team in the country. So we'll see. We'll see. BYU 8. I have Tennessee 9. I'd kind of lost interest in Tennessee there a little bit. Slow game going against Kentucky, but they pulled it out. That's fine. Notre Dame 10. I'm going to go SMU 11 after crushing Pittsburgh. SMU is 13 in the AP and 15 in the coaches poll. So the voters not loving them as much. 12s, here are your options. The AP went with Bama 11, Boise 12. The coaches have Bama 11th. They have Ole Miss 12th, where the AP is not as into Ole Miss despite just an ass kicking against Arkansas on Saturday. So there's this collection of SEC teams here, whether it's Bama, LSU, A&M dropping 5 spots. Thanks, Russillo, for the Alliance pick. South Carolina, then Ole Miss. So you've got 6 spots here, and it's 4 SEC teams, but they all kind of like have big games again here too, as well. Like Bama's going to play LSU here. A&M's got Texas. Ole Miss still has Georgia. That one's at home. So there's a chance certainly to get back into this stuff, but they're also a chance to kind of eliminate each other here as well. And Tennessee, I think the rest of the way, yet. See, they have Georgia also. So I'm going to go with, I don't really want to put Bama there like everybody else did. So why don't we just go Boise, even though today, I don't know. I mean, Bama's not like this world killer right now. So just to sit here and say automatically that I know Bama's better than Boise State, they probably are, but I'm fine with Boise after putting together a nice little run here. Even though, they haven't beaten anybody ranked. Great. Awesome. Breaking my own rules again. All right. Speaking of breaking rules, I want to talk a little NBA off of the big news from the weekend that had nothing to do with any of the games. And that was Joel Embiid getting into it with a reporter. So the backstory here, and I only understand this as an outsider because I don't know Marcus Hayes, Philadelphia Inquirer columnist. I guess he's been there forever. He wrote this story about Embiid. And as you know, if you listen to me talk about Embiid, like I'm kind of getting over it in general, despite liking him. I've just been more over it. I talked about it in the over-under pod. It became a breakout video. Then it makes it look like I hate Embiid, but I just am kind of tired of just all the bullshit around it. And then when somebody's like, hey, did you read that columnist who kind of lit him up? I was like, oh, I wonder if I'll agree with a lot of this stuff. Well, when I read the column, I actually couldn't believe it because Hayes was trying to make a point, and it was such an impossible turn where he said, quote, Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son Arthur as the major inflection point in his career. He often says that he wants to be great to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother who died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. All right. Next paragraph. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now in his 11th season, he consistently has been in poor condition. I got to tell you, yes, I would not argue for Embiid's conditioning. I would also agree that, it's kind of ridiculous, like how often he's hurt and the other times he's missing games. I would say as an editor to this piece, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe we put a little buffer in there in between the death of his brother and then right into dumping on him for not playing in enough games. Like, is there any way you can get from that point to the next point with a few other points in between? Or maybe just don't make that point because that seems a little unfair. And when I read it, I kind of couldn't fucking believe it. I was like, so I don't know. Trust me. I'm not saying this to be dismissive of anybody that's a writer. It's just that I'm not reading every local story, certainly not as much as I used to. When it comes to these teams, but I also know that like when I was in Boston, there was always like a columnist or two that would decide to just kind of be that guy, right? You would just kind of be that guy and get reaction and piss people off. And some people actually make like a real living out of it by being relevant, by pissing everybody off all the time. I have no idea if that's what this guy's deal is, but I thought it was crossing a line. Then on Saturday night, you're watching some of the late college football and you see a tweet from another Sixers reporter saying that Embiid's assaulted a reporter in the locker room. I always feel like the word assault does more work. Like it just feels like it's, oh my God, this must be really bad. And then I don't know what happened because there was all sorts of stuff happening on X where it was somebody was yelling, "Don't report this." Apparently there wasn't a video when it feels like there's always a video. That it was just a shove. And you can't. It's hard to sit here and say like, "Hey, I'm totally okay with it," but I'm just on Embiid's side with this one. I thought this piece crossed the line, and you're not supposed to put your hands on anybody and that kind of stuff. And Embiid's an enormous human being, so he's going to have the physical advantage of literally anybody he's going up against here. But I guess what I would say is instead of saying like, "Cool, it's awesome," he shoved this reporter. I also don't think assault should have been thrown around as freely as it was. You can get into the semantics of it. I think normal people would be like, there's a difference between shoving somebody in the shoulder, if that's just what happened, and then just jacking somebody in the head. So basically my point would be, even where I'm at, where I'm positioned right now with Embiid, I had no issue with this whatsoever because I thought this article crossed a line and was just trying to be brutal on purpose. I think those 2 paragraphs, it was like, let me see how nasty I can make this. And I guess they actually changed. They edited the original article and changed that part of it, or just took it out entirely after people were so pissed about it. So, yeah, cool. You got a reaction. And then you also got one out of the player. And we'll see what happens. Good to have Todd McShay with us Mondays. As always, the McShay Show, Saturdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays. I know you guys did a breakdown of Georgia, Florida. Also some Ohio State, Penn State stuff. So there's a couple things that I want to do from that. But let's start with the NFL. Detroit feels like, well, I don't know if I can say they're the most complete team, but they feel like they're marching towards best team in the NFL, despite the fact that Kansas City's undefeated. But maybe we're just holding Kansas City to its own standard because Kansas City's a much better defense to this point of the season than Detroit is. But when you watch the Lions play, dominant on the road in Green Bay conditions, and they look like the more comfortable team through it all. I know Love's dealing with the groin injury, but just takeaways on like, if it were right now, if Detroit were playing Kansas City in the Super Bowl, who would you pick?
Well, let's start with Detroit, right? I guess the big question mark was how is Detroit going to play outside, in these conditions? And they seemed like the outside team. They seemed like, they were not a dome football team. They handled the conditions better. And yes, part of it was Jordan Love just not being himself and dealing with the groin injury and making some, I don't want to call him uncharacteristic mistakes because he still makes some mistakes where you're like, oh man, come on. But it just felt like Detroit, like the conditions were not an issue for the Lions, and they jumped them early and were able to kind of then lean into playing with a lead. And it looked the way you would expect a team that is used to playing outside look. And that was the big question mark, right? I think this, and then they've got another game. What is it, at Chicago late in the season? But other than that, they're like a lot of warm weather dome games. They're protected. So the biggest thing for me is how complete this team looks. Defensively, yeah, they lost Hutchinson, and you can't make up for that, but they've been able to make up for that so far. And they're doing it, but they're blitzing more. And they have, when you blitz, the obvious issue that comes with blitzing and being more aggressive is that you leave yourself vulnerable in the back end. They've handled it extremely well. I love their safety tandem, Joseph and Branch. And Branch gets kicked out of that game, and Joseph steps up and has the huge pick. I think that's 2 weeks in a row with an interception. I've always loved Joseph. So I think the fact that they're making plays on the back end, the fact that they're dialing up pressure at the right time, are they as good as Kansas City defensively? No, but they're damn good. And offensively, I don't think there's any question the more efficient offensive team, and that's Detroit. It's kind of weird to say with Patrick Mahomes, but it's been a couple years now with struggling in the regular season on offense. Weapons, whether it's injuries or losing guys in the offseason, they just don't look as dynamic and explosive as they have, and as they had been in years past. So I don't know about you, man, but like, it's so impossible to sit there and be like, yeah, I would feel great about Detroit against Kansas City in a Super Bowl setting because you got Mahomes and you got that defense. But right now, the better team in my mind, when I'm watching games on Sunday, the better team has been Detroit. I mean, offensively, like St. Brown, what he's doing, just so consistent and so dynamic. Laporta is a stud at tight end. We knew that from his rookie year and continues to be a huge factor. Jamison Williams isn't even in. He'll be back at some point, and when he comes back, he adds another element. But this Khalid Raymond, the Holy Cross kid, has stepped up the last 2 weeks in his absence. So you got the two-headed monster running back. Jahmyr Gibbs has been everything they had hoped for and more as a first-round pick when everyone was just bashing Brad Holmes. And we talked about it right after the draft. Like, yeah, you can yell at them all you want, but they got huge difference makers with their draft picks. And just the way that they were able to load up on picks for a 2-year span and how productive those players have been from the early rounds. Like, this is an organization that has built it the right way. And the product on the field has been phenomenal. And Jared Goff, like, how about that stat? Did you see that stat? The Lions have, in the last 6 games since week 3, I guess, have 26 touchdowns, and Jared Goff has 22 incompletions. Like, that's outrageous, man.
Yeah, there's all these stats where, in the past I would wonder, okay, what's your completion rate? And then that doesn't seem to matter as much because the design of some of the throws in the offense. But Goff's at 75% right now. It's number 1 in the NFL. Yards per attempt. I used to think that was super important. Then I started thinking like, well, can it be a little misleading here? And Goff is number 2 in the NFL, only behind Lamar Jackson. And that's always the one with Mahomes where you just can't believe how much that number keeps going down and down and down because he's changed the way he's played quarterback based on personnel and some of that other stuff.
So
Look,
if the game's tomorrow, we're here, we're prepping the show, and it's a neutral site. They have to line up and play tomorrow. Who are you taking?
I'm going to pick Kansas City.
Yeah, because you always do. Because Mahomes and you're always right. So,
yeah, but the fact I'm even thinking about it is like as much credit as I could give to another team. Because I'm with you. Like as you said here, it feels like Detroit's the best team in the NFL, and yet Kansas City's undefeated. We'll see what happens tonight. The whole thing. I think that itself is like a compliment. I really do. I don't know that you have to say I'd pick Detroit. It was Detroit or the field. Well, of course you would take the field, but the fact that it could even be a topic, I think, is a credit to where they're at.
Who in the NFC?
The last years.
Who in the NFC scares you the most? There's competition.
Well, I'd like to see Green Bay with a healthy Jordan Love, so I think that's an issue.
Does Washington scare you? Minnesota, Philly? I'm not saying. They're all good teams. I'm just curious, like,
I don't know. I still think a healthy 49ers team is scarier to me than Washington, Philly, or Minnesota. I just have a hard time quitting the 49ers. And maybe that's ridiculous because they're not even in the playoffs this morning. They're the 11th seed. Who would you pick? I mean, would you rather play Arizona or San Francisco if you're Detroit?
Right now?
Yeah.
Like today, maybe San Francisco, but where they're going to be at the end of the season, I would bet everything on San Francisco being better than Arizona.
What about Washington?
It's hard, right? Washington's good, man. They're good. Jaden Daniels has come back to earth a little bit, but not, but like still dynamic. But they're a good football team. But if I like crystal balling it, I think San Fran has a better chance. There's a good chance to be better at the end of the year. Minnesota scares me. I think they're a damn good football team. I really do. Yeah, I think they're there to like this is real.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I'll admit that there was part of me watching the Colts game last night where they're down 7-0 at half. And I'm like, is this Minnesota story over based on the standard that we'd have for them? The defense is rolling. Darnold's figured it out. They have the best wide receiver. Like they get Hawkinson back.
Yep.
And yet they're down 7-0. They've lost 2 games in a row.
God, that was a brutal first half.
Right. And I was watching it going, okay, the Lions won, no problem, because we've spent so much time already gushing about the Lions. The Rams one is weird because the Rams have been like 3 different teams this year.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't seem like it was some awful loss. Just there's certain weeks where if you get Stafford on the wrong week, like he might just beat you because he's been so good. But then when they're down 7-0, and I'm kind of doing some of my college football notes and everything, I'm sitting in my kitchen island and I'm like, maybe this Minnesota thing is just kind of over.
Yeah, but it's
you don't
not.
think so, though?
No.
Okay, good.
No, I don't. I mean, remember, they lost to Detroit by 2 points.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Okay.
I don't think Philly
Lawrence
can get out of its own way, but go ahead.
I really liked Philly the last month or so.
Yeah, I do too. But
I do.
Do you trust them in a playoff environment against one of these teams? That's where I don't have a whole lot of trust.
Here's what I would say, though. Like, of all these teams that we're constantly trying to figure out because it changes because of injuries and sometimes it's like interior linemen that we're not aware of. Like, they're on their 3rd defensive tackle, that kind of stuff. You're like, oh, okay, now I see why they're. When you're as talented as they are, then they are. Like, even the worst version of Hurts can't be like the best version of him was considered the best quarterback in the NFC going into just last year at the start of 23 after the Super Bowl appearance in 22. So I would rather you have a bunch of dudes that I can still name that I still think are good. But maybe that's part of what's been misleading about the Eagles. Like, I just think that team is more talented than Washington is, although Washington's front is really nasty right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing else on that?
No, I like Philly. The talent is absolutely like undeniable.
Okay.
I just wonder if they can get out of their own way when we get late in the season, playoffs, critical decisions, coaches putting team organizations in the right spot. Will they make the right decisions to allow all that talent to come to the top? That's where my concern is.
All right. Can we talk about Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah.
All right. So I spent a good chunk going through that last possession where he throws a pick on first down that's like a 4th down throw. All right. You want to throw that on 4th down, fine. But like they still have plenty of time left. They've moved the football. There's a chance they're going to pull this out. And I think he missed 6 of 7 throws other than the first down. There's one that's a PI. You could argue that's why. I think he might have missed the throw anyway, even with the PI. So maybe you can say 2 were fine. What is he? How did this happen? Because at least we know there's like real college stuff that was pretty good. And it felt like after his rough rookie year that so many really good quarterbacks have, there was a significant jump into his second year. Then you have Peterson. It's just, there's even some numbers that tell you he's actually like better than you would think, which is kind of crazy. Some of the QBR stuff. But I think most of us watch it every week going, what is this guy? Like, what happened?
You have to wonder I'm starting to get worried. Let's put it this way. I'm starting to get worried that this is Trevor Lawrence, right? That his rookie year was just throw out the tape. His second year was getting in a system, kind of seeing like the league seeing Trevor Lawrence in a system that's functional and taking time to catch up with it. Guys that I talk to in the league that have a better understanding, like defensive guys that like understand, like I get the strong sense that they feel like Doug Peterson's offense has peaked in terms of what they can do, what they can create. I don't think it's helping. I'm not saying it's a bad system or it can't be successful, but I do think there's some schematic things that are not, necessarily putting Trevor Lawrence in the best position to win. But at the end of the day, like we saw really good signs from him that second year. Last year, we saw a quarterback that was battling injuries, didn't feel like himself, and was kind of always behind the 8 ball. And I was expecting this year to be a bounce back, to be quite honest. And I don't know that there's lingering injury effects. I think there's lingering mental effects. Here's what I see. because I've studied this a lot, because it's frustrating when you have that high of a grade on a quarterback and for him to play this inconsistently and poorly, like he has for this long of a period of time. You got to kind of check yourself, right? And so I see a quarterback that all of a sudden is like not inconsistent, but really bad versus the blitz. And that's part scheme. It's part plan. You know what I mean? Like not having the right plan and the right ways to navigate through that. But it's also, there's something in his brain that's not clicking and functioning the way it needs to, where that it's causing enough disruption for him, where he doesn't trust where he's going with the ball. He doesn't trust what he's seeing. He doesn't have a confidence level in what his plan is to beat the blitz. And that's not something you expect to see with an NFL quarterback with the experience that he now has, right? And so that's been frustrating to watch. Bigger picture, I don't see a quarterback who's comfortable with his footwork, who's consistent with his footwork, who's, it's like, it's more stuff that we talk about in college prospects than we do with NFL guys. How many times do you and I have a conversation about a 4 or 5 year vet in the NFL at the quarterback position, like, his footwork's a mess? It just doesn't happen a lot. You know what I mean? Like Josh Allen, we had that conversation coming out of Wyoming. Josh Allen, we had that conversation as a rookie. But now your full-time job with the support that you have, with quarterback coaches, with the off seasons you have, like it gets to a point, right, Ryan? Like it truly gets to a point. I guess it's like a shooter in the NBA. It gets to a point where your footwork and your shot are the same. Like, and now it's not about tweaking it and improving it, or like, it's about just drilling it over and over. So it's muscle memory. And it's like, that's who I am. I don't know the NBA, like I don't study the NBA like you do, but I would find it hard to believe there are a lot of guys that 5 years into their career, you're like, well, if he could just get his footwork and his base right and or is changing his shot. Like I don't hear that a lot in NBA coverage. And I know you don't have that a lot with NFL quarterbacks. So the why behind it all is hard to pinpoint, because I'm not in that building every day and I don't know what's going on. And I'm not an NFL defensive coordinator who can sit and walk through like the minutia. But I am an evaluator, and I see the tape, and I see a quarterback that is dealing with footwork issues, fast brain, rushed process, lack of confidence in his plan and where his eyes should be. And that shows up on tape, and that shouldn't occur at this point in his career.
Let's talk a little college. I left.
You didn't like that answer, or just it was so authoritative?
No, I have nothing. Yeah, it was so good. Why would I even mess with it? Yeah, I have nothing to add to it. But I do want to get some college ball in, just because I think there's a few games at least worth touching on. And the headline is Ohio State beats Penn State. If somebody just wants to rail on Penn State there, I get it. My bigger issue is just now what happens where you're just going to be eligible to play for a national championship, perhaps without one significant win. But that's its own issue with the expansion of the playoffs. Congrats. But I mean, Penn State's in the game. They shouldn't feel like there's some massive gap. It starts off great, and they don't convert the fourth down, which was the move at the time. But I didn't leave that thinking like Penn State should be embarrassed. The problem is that it's just so repetitive for Franklin and this group against the best teams, that this is what happens whenever you play them, despite clearly feeling like you had a real chance, especially at the start of this game. So I didn't leave being like, oh, Penn State, these frauds, because that'd be totally unfair.
Yeah, but
more along the line. But you do. Okay, go for it.
I'm not saying frauds, but I left being like, shit, like, If Will Howard doesn't make that one terrible decision and throw for the pick six, if Will Howard, and I loved what Will Howard did in the second half and the running and all the little things that he did, but if Will Howard doesn't, the fumble in the end zone and that, like, there are like 2 or 3 plays where if Ohio State made them or didn't make a mistake, I felt like it was lopsided. I felt Ohio State was faster. I felt Ohio State, honest to God, this was like a crowning jewel coaching moment for Chip Kelly, who doesn't need one. But my God, did they out-scheme Penn State in this game offensively. Like, you got a lifelong, not just like a season, a lifelong left guard. You kick out to left tackle. You got a center who started last year but hasn't played much this year and has never played guard, starting at left guard. And you're able to run the ball for like 149 with your two running backs, and you're able to out-scheme Penn State the way they did. Like, how about like Tate, the wide receiver for Ohio State, opened that could have been a touchdown if Will Howard was on. So those three plays, Will Howard, bad pick six early in the game, Will Howard with the fumble into the end zone, and then Will Howard missing a wide open receiver and throwing Tate like 3 yards out of bounds instead of leading him to a touchdown. Like, that changes the whole game, bud. Ohio State was significantly better coached. They significantly out-schemed Penn State defensively. They were faster on both sides of the ball, more athletic. I don't know. I just saw a huge gap. And it wasn't Ohio State's best game. They played a great game. You know, when it was all said and done, they defensively, that's the best game I've seen this year. Kind of what we've been waiting for all year long. Like Igbinoso, like at cornerback. Denzel Burke played well. The pass rush, they mixed it up. Like, they played really good on all three levels on the defensive side for Ohio State. But to me, I don't know. I walked away from it being like, yeah, the score was close, one score, all that. But a few different plays, and Ohio State wins this one by like 21.
Yeah, I guess I can't really push back on that. You're right. It's just that I think it's one of those games where towards the end of it, they still had a chance. Like, the fact that they still had a chance against a team historically that there's a lot of these games where I've left going, okay, there's a gap. There's a gap. And maybe you still feel that because we're not used to Ohio State's defense showing up like this. I completely agree as far as like Day and Kelly afterwards, the way they were celebrating on the field, like how much this meant to them, knowing how they had to put this thing together. Yeah. And then Howard kind of running away with it. I think that last drive made them feel like a little bit more physical than they have throughout a lot of times this season. And that's why they were so fired up to convert all those first downs. Franklin has now gone 95-40 at Penn State. He's 60-33 in the Big Ten. And we could go through a bunch of that stuff and say, okay, well, who you're playing. Like, is it a Franklin problem, in your opinion?
Oof. I always ask myself this question. Who are they going to get to that's going to make them better? I am not a James Franklin guy, and I'm not here to explain all the reasons why. I think they're capped out with James Franklin, but I also, I'm a realist. I'm not the lunatic fringe, as Herbstreit always talk about. I'm not the 10-15% that screams the loudest. I try to be very rational about this, and I'm like, all right, who's going to come in and make this better? He obviously recruits extremely well. They obviously run a really good organization, if you will. You know, they win almost every game they should win, and they should win almost every game they play because they are getting talent there. But it very if it wasn't Saturday, then when? You know what I mean? Like, Ohio State comes in with a terrible left tackle situation, terrible left side of their offensive line situation. They come in with a defense that wasn't playing, up to the level that you expected. You're playing at home. You got your quarterback is back. And by the way, it wasn't like, well, if Aller was just 100%, he had 3 runs and climbed the pocket that first drive. It was not a lack of mobility at quarterback. In fact, when they brought in our guy, Prabula, that kind of set back that first drive, right? So I didn't get a sense that it was circumstance or injury or anything like that. It was just Ohio State was a better football team, more talented, better coached. And so if the goal, and obviously the goal is to take that next step as a program, you better have someone who can come in and do all the things that Franklin's been able to do, but it then is able to take that next step. And I don't know who that guy is.
Georgia beats Florida. They were losing at halftime, down 13-6. The game was 20-20, and then it was 34-20 in a very short amount of time. But these Carson Beck interceptions, Todd, are brutal.
Gosh.
Like they're not like, oh, something could, it's just,
tip ball,
it's like you're not seeing the extra guy. Like there's another dude over there near the throw, and they can be number 2 in the country here, and maybe they still win the whole thing. But God, you can't imagine they're going to escape the SEC title game in the playoffs if he keeps playing like this. And Florida's, Florida's down Lagway. He gets knocked out.
Yep.
They're bringing in another freshman quarterback that nobody's heard of.
From Yale.
Florida's been more competitive here, I think, than maybe people realize. So even though their record and the spread and all that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, Georgia should just kill this team. The Beck part of it for who Georgia is supposed to be the rest of the way is probably the headline for me, even though they got the win.
Yeah, it's one of the headlines in college football. Like you enter the year with an experienced quarterback where everyone's talking about he very well could be the first quarterback taken in the 2025 NFL draft. You see some mistakes early on. You think, well, they're going to correct this. And you keep watching on Saturdays and you keep seeing the same mistakes. Just can't happen, man. And there's no turning away from it. There's no benching him and bringing somebody else in. He's your guy and you've got to ride with it. But like three more interceptions, 11 interceptions on the season, 4 multiple interception games. You can excuse away an interception or a bad decision here and there. But at this point, it's beyond a pattern. It's beyond a trend. And that's frightening because Georgia's good enough up front offensively. Georgia's good enough defensively. Georgia does not have elite weapons at wide receiver, but they've got enough talent. That first interception, it's like I made the analogy like when you're going to take a left onto like a busy road or like a 2-lane highway and you're trying to get on, like you look left and there's no car coming, you look right, there's no car coming, but then you always kind of peek back left as you're starting to make the turn left onto the busy road. It's like he looked left, he looked right, but he didn't do that last peek back to see the oncoming 90-mile-an-hour car that's racing out of nowhere. That's what happened. He got caught. The 6'2" cornerback, number 28, makes the interception. That's on Carson Beck. The second interception, I swear to you, could have been picked off by at least 2 people, 2 defenders, maybe the third who was in trail coverage. Terrible decision. There are times where it's like, is he just careless? There are other times where I'm like, is he just locked on too much where he's predetermined? And when you start combining all those thoughts that you have when you're studying his tape, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is he's just not seeing the whole field and he's not making sound decisions with the ball. And so now if I'm the offensive coordinator, if I'm Kirby Smart, like we now have to plan for this. We now have to this is a workaround situation. We cannot trust our quarterback and put him in positions where he's allowed to make these mistakes because the first 5 or 6, it's on him. The next 4 or 5, like we should be working to try to correct it. You get to 11 interceptions in a season at this point, when we just turn the calendar over to November. And now it's on the coaching staff moving forward. They have to game plan around this because it's not going to change. It doesn't appear like it's going to change. And that's a scary place to be when you come into the season and one of the strengths of your entire team is supposed to be your quarterback.
Yeah, it was great to see Nate Frazier get the bulk of the carries because I feel like there's been times this year with him, the freshman running back, where I was like, I'm surprised they're not giving him a little bit more. And I get it because, Trevor Etienne is the other guy getting the carries and he's been kind of in and out going back to the beginning.
They're different when he's in, though. I'll say that. When Etienne is in. Yeah.
Oh, you like Etienne better still?
I do, but I see the talent with Frazier. But I think if you have both of them healthy, that's when you're rolling, and is my guess will be a big part of the plan to kind of overcome what's happened at quarterback.
Did you have anything else on like who would you pick Miami against national championship? Oregon or Miami
to win?
Yeah.
Oregon.
Georgia.
Oof. Georgia because of the defense, but I'd be less confident.
Miami, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Miami, Texas.
Texas.
Miami, Penn State.
Miami.
Okay, so it took us getting to the sixth team in the country before we found a win there. Tennessee at 6 in the coaches poll still sort of shocks me.
Why do you even read that?
Well, there's 7 in the AP as well. I mean, look, I'm just in anticipation of all the results that we're getting tomorrow.
Here's what I think we're going to see.
Okay.
It's tomorrow night. We know Oregon's going to be 1. Ohio State, Georgia will be 2, 3. I think Miami will be at 4. I think you could make an argument for BYU at 5, but I think it'll probably be Texas. Then you get down to, so that would be 5, 6 for me, Texas, BYU. You can put them however you want. I think it'll be Texas. Then you get to 7. I think it'll be Penn State. I think that's as far as they'll drop. I don't necessarily agree with it. But yeah, I think that's a comfortable spot. Penn State at 7. I would go Tennessee at 8. So Tennessee 8. Then to me, it gets interesting, right?
Now it's like really weird, but you seem to be definitive on Tennessee better than Indiana.
Yeah, I do. Because I have eyes and I've watched football for a long time. And I love it. Like, you can't take away anything that Cignetti's done, but like, what was I reading? I don't think have they beaten anyone that has I don't know, something weird. Like Nebraska's the only team with a winning record currently that they've beaten, and Nebraska's 5-4. Something like that. So
the strength of schedule is still on the some of the football ranking stuff. Like, somebody can hear this from Bloomington and go, no, that's not accurate. And it's like, well, it actually, you can look at their strength of schedule is still so far behind everybody else's, like way behind. I mean, even BYU's like 61. Indiana, I have it at 103 this morning.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because now let's say Tennessee's at 8, right?
Yep.
I think Notre Dame could very well be 9 ahead of Boise State. Boise State, to me, like, that loss to Oregon, that was only 3 points, right?
Was it 3?
I think it was only 3. That was close. And so now all of a sudden, like that.
Yeah, 37-34.
Yeah, man. Like that's impressive. That's a great loss. So I think Notre Dame, Boise, then I would have Indiana like 11. And then the 12th spot, and it doesn't matter now. We get a lot of football to play. But if we were to do this, I think I would throw in Alabama at that spot, but not have tremendous confidence in it. But that's how I think it's going to roll. Something like that. And they certainly.
What about SMU?
I would have them on the outside looking in, but we're not going to have. Yeah, I would have them outside looking in.
I guess I just don't want to default to Bama again. Like I was just supposed to put them 12 here, and that's what they did in the polls, which I also kind of understand. But it's like, are you picking Bama saying, oh, well, Bama would still beat Indiana. Bama would still beat all these teams. It's like, okay, maybe they would. I know they'd be favored in some of this stuff, but what are we doing? Are we picking this year's Bama or are we picking the last 10 years of Bama? And that's likely what's happening here with the voters again. And we'll see if the committee who
I'm picking a Bama team that worked over Georgia and has talent and has a quarterback that when he's right
that's fine.
Is a freak.
I can't push back on that a ton. I can't, but I think I went with Boise just because I don't have anything else to add to it. Okay. And in the AP, it's flipped. It's Bama 11, Boise 12, and who knows? This could be a template that has. I think
Boise's higher. I could see Boise in the top 10 when the rankings come out.
All right. Well, that'll be tomorrow. I'm excited. That's Todd McShay. Again, check out the McShay Show. Ringer feed wherever you get your podcasts. Saturday night recap of everything is an awesome pod. People already love it. Tuesdays and Thursdays. What else you get going on this week? Anything?
Saturday Night Live. It's our own version. Saturday Night Live. We are going live finally on that show. I'm excited about it. We're live on YouTube and Spotify, I believe. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, we're gonna try it out. Try not to screw it up. You have an open invitation. I'm sure you'll come on like one more time where it's beneficial to you, and it's like like the playoff or some big night. But open invitation to Russillo. It'll probably just be mention and we're excited for it. I mean, just think about it. LSU, Bama coming up. Like, I'd love to be in Baton Rouge. Whew. But coming off that game, Herbie Fowler sign off. Like the second the game's over, we jump in. Like, where else would you rather be? Talking ball.
Maybe I'll call in from the sideline.
Oh, you're going to be there?
Dude, I go every year.
Are you really? Now I'm pissed.
Thanks.
Now it doesn't seem so excited sitting in my home talking about the game. Where are you going to eat?
We're doing Brandon's Supper Club, I think Thursday and Friday night. And then, just take it from there. Hooked up at the casino. Should be fun.
Damn. That's a great way. As a scout, I'm going to talk about that in the show this week. That's a scouting delight because the Saints are home on Sunday. If you can,
I can't do the Saints. LSU. I've done it before. It's a big ask. It's a big ask.
Yeah, it's tough to peel yourself, out of that.
I'm actually going to come back. I haven't done this in a while, but I was so sick of doing it the last couple of years, where I would go to these SEC schools for the game, but then I would just be so worried about missing the NFL on Sunday that I would just do all NFL Sundays, and then I would tape my pod on Monday from the hotel room, and then I would get back to LA at like a Monday night. And the last couple of times I've done it, there was no reason to really even be depressed. I just was bummed out, and I'm like eating at some strip mall, watching Sunday Night Football, taking notes, and then getting up and like working out at a hotel gym and checking your flight. And you're like, you're still there. You're still there in the SEC town, and everybody's been gone now for like 48 hours. And you're sitting there doing life advice at like 3:00 in the afternoon.
When you're the one who really needs the life advice at that point.
Right. Yeah, right. So we're trying something a little different this time. I'm gonna try to get back Sunday morning. So going for it. Big boy departure.
Like early?
Yeah, early. Just
out of where?
Baton Rouge.
Oof. That's aggressive.
Atlanta, LAX.
But that just ruins Saturday. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but I'll be able to pull it off. I can tape everything and then get back here, and then I'll just stay up, getting caught up on all the games. Like, I totally can do it. It's just instead of starting at 10 a.m., I'll start at 2, and instead of being done at 8, I'll be done at midnight. And then we'll rip it right back. Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy the weekend.
All right. Thanks, Todd. Enjoy your week, not just the weekend. That's Todd McShay.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari, 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice rr@gmail.com. We've got Kyle and Ceruti.
Yep.
What's going on?
Johnnies are back. That's about all. Is there any other news going on?
No one has more Johnny's gear than you do. Get a ton of Johnny's gear.
Hey, next week we're playing Quinnipiac, Steve.
Let's go. Somebody tweeted at me that there was like a shout out in the press box pod. So I'll have to go back and listen to it. I do listen to the pod that they said that they needed help with the Quinnipiac poll. So I guess
yes, they do.
I might be the expert. So I'll have to call in.
Get on that, dude.
Did you take a lot of pride in that poll?
So that used to be, like, you know what's kind of crazy. I initially yes, because like when you tell people you know where you went to school, you want people to know where you went. And Quinnipiac's a little obscure school in the Northeast. Shout out to Hamden, Connecticut. But that's actually a work study job. I didn't personally do it, but I had a bunch of buddies that did work study where they would call up, cold call random people, undecided voters, and just ask them questions, which feels like I need to know more about that. I'm like mad that I didn't do it. That seems like it could have been kind of fun.
It's nice that you have a claim to fame. When I say I go to Potsdam, people are like, the Potsdam good, am I right? That's all I got. That's all they have for Potsdam. The high school mascot was the Stoners, by the way. Unironically, like a guy who like breaks stones.
That's actually kind of awesome.
Pretty funny, yeah. Dudes were walking around with Potsdam Stoners gear. Pretty good.
That's like the USC Cox hat, South Carolina.
Right.
Everybody had that hat back in the day. Yep.
I had it.
So did I.
Nice. You going to a Dave show? Here's your South Carolina hat.
Yep.
All right. What do we got here? Denver Live Pod. We're getting a lot of these, so let's just put them all to bed right now. I'm a photographer based in Denver. I have shot live concerts and sports. Would love to shoot the live pod at the Fillmore. I do it for super cheap or free. I mean, I listen to every pod for free, so it's only fair. I'd also be sure to only share flattering angles of Russillo. Let me know if you might be interested. Happy to talk about it more, share some of my work. P.S. Kyle, I played lacrosse with Zoe at SLU and am a normal person. He can confirm.
Nice.
SLU shout-outs. It's Bill's pod. It's not mine, so I have nothing to do with it. I'm just sort of there.
If you're going and you want to take photos of me after, that'd be cool. Need some photos for the family calendar this year.
Christmas
So,
gifts.
what is that?
Just what's what? I'm just saying if he's going to go anyway, like, after, I'm really going there to push the button, it sounds like, and then put the pod up later. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be free afterwards.
That kind of sounds like it would suck for him, whatever you just asked if you'd be interested in doing.
A solo shoot?
Well, just like out and about, like maybe the crowd.
Like in the alley?
I don't know.
With your arms folded?
I have been doing the arms folded thing. I've been liking the way the results have been coming with the arms folded. Anyway, we can talk off air.
I love that. I love the idea of like, hey, we hired this photographer to shoot the show. Oh, like, what does Bill want? Does he want this? Oh, no, he's just going to shoot Kyle on the job.
I'm just saying if you're going anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what he wants to do. I was surprised. Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised how down you were for your own photo shoot.
Well, don't get a lot of offers. That's all I'm saying. Get in where you fit in.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
You miss all the shots you don't take. Didn't Michael Scott say that?
I think Wayne Gretzky said it, then Michael Scott said it.
Right. True.
Okay, sports journalism. Current personal trainer, 34, 5'10", 200 pounds, 550 deadlift, 500 pound squat, 365 bench press. Look out.
Seems high.
Former professional MMA fighter and former football player. So look out. I'm a diehard Chicago Bulls fan. The last few years, I started a Twitter account strictly for my Bulls thoughts, and it's taken off into a nice little following. A couple of months ago, I was asked by a sports site to write content for them about the Bulls. My problem is they seem to want bubblegum content, small 6-paragraph articles on whatever trade rumor or bullshit thing is in the news that day. I want to do in-depth analysis, write pieces breaking down exactly what the Bulls miss about Alex Caruso's defense, or break down the reasons why Patrick Williams looks like a bust. I want to write the kind of articles that talk days, if not weeks, to really break down what's going on, the kind of articles you used to see on Grantland. This site has no interest in these kinds of pieces. Is there any appetite for those types of articles anymore? Is that side of journalism dead? Would I be better off starting my own blog or podcast? Well,
I was going to say, do you own a microphone?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's great that that's what you want to do. I don't know that's what the audience wants anymore. I cannot believe how quickly Google, and just the time from I would say researching the preview stuff for the over-unders for the 23-24 season versus the 24-25 season, how bad Google was and what it was drawing me towards. And all of the articles that exactly like you're talking about, like you would actually click on. And most of the times I can kind of weed it out before I even click, where I'm like, I don't think this is a real place. And it'll be somebody's picture and there's like a byline, and then it's supposedly totally real. And it would just be like 5 places where Lonzo Ball could go. And if you look, Lakers was drafted there. Charlotte, brother plays there. Golden State, potential help with Curry injury. Miami, always in the market for talent. And then it would just, then it's over. The fucking article's over. And I had Googled like last time Lonzo Ball played or whatever. Now, granted, I could just look it up on a game log, but the traffic now, whatever it was, and like Bleacher Report was ahead of this before anybody else. It was kind of like the first fake podcast number where, because everything was a slideshow, their numbers just dominated. So then every time you went to look for anything sports related, it was just going to Bleacher Report because it was getting the highest hit rate, but it also took you had to click 12 fucking times to read the article. Now, granted, they ended up hiring like some real people, but in the beginning, it was just let's do the slideshow thing that's different than everybody else, and then our numbers are going to be through the roof. And I think it worked out for all of those people, the same way it's worked out for some in podcasting. But when I'm talking, like, you're right, the guy writing in is totally right, and it's really, really frustrating. But it would appear to be a result of what I always talk about. Like, the audience really is to blame for the product that they get, because it seems like people click on that shit more than they were going to click on any of the long form stuff. But I can't believe how quickly, when you're trying to look up like something from a couple seasons ago, or you're trying to find the right stat for what's the record, so much of it is just totally wrong. And then the rest of it will be just, I said a word and here's a word and whatever those most popular thing in the last week. Like, if you wanted to try to find any Karl Anthony Towns information, good luck finding anything that would be more than just a couple months ago from the trade to now. Like, it's just nuts.
So, I mean, I think this stuff is probably changing as, the way people get their stuff and what they care about changing. But do you think this is almost part of the storyline now of like your arc about doing the thing you actually want to do? Is this like the beginning part where it's just like, you're not going to like it, but you just like, you do it? Like, is that, if this is what you want and you want to talk and analyze sports, and the most jobs there are writing this, I don't know, could be AI stuff that is kind of garbage, but that's what's out there. Like, is that like the beginning? Is that like, if you want to be a bartender, maybe you start as a dishwasher, or, you want to be a server, you just do that for a little bit? Is that, you think that's like the new norm, sort of?
Yeah. It's like Chris Evans. Like, you got to do Not Another Teen Movie before you start doing, for your Captain America.
Right. Because he's just like, are people going to look at you differently when you're trying to go for your next job and you still keep the Twitter account and it's going well? And you're like, oh, but he also wrote for this website that's, nothing. Like, I don't think it would damage you as much as he's worried about, right? It's probably good that like you're going in the right direction in this, increasingly harder to be successful at thing.
But it sounds like it's an integrity
thing.
thing.
Harder, but
it sounds like he's not just like, hey, I want to write no matter what. It's like, hey, I want to write this specific thing. So right. I don't think I think you could still do that. It's just going to take way longer to grow, and it's going to be harder, and it's going to be more of a grind, where you can probably get that instant gratification, as Kyle said, right away if you do the stuff you don't want to do at first and then grow into it. But, you never know if that payoff's even going to be there. So it's like, is it worth it or is it not worth it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing I would ask. How important is this to you? Because it sounds like it's not so important that you're going to do the paying your dues phase that Kyle was kind of alluding to here. Like, you don't want to do any of that stuff. Like, if you cared about it so much, then maybe you do that for a little while. But if you're going to just not enjoy it, I would say just keep doing your thing and just tell the people no. But I think the real shame in all of this is that the number of times I will see, like, that's why I still religiously will read, Ringer with some of the long form stuff. And then The Athletic has a lot of really good long form stuff. But whenever you're Googling something now for just, hey, what's going on with this team, or I want to see what's going on there, it's just this, it's mostly terrible. And I won't even know who the person is 90% of the time. It's like, who the fuck wrote this? And there's just nothing to it. There's nothing to it whatsoever. But I think those are the things that get the clicks. So that's why you're being asked to write those. So anyway, you're going to have to figure out what's important to you, because maybe not writing those and being annoyed is still more important than growing whatever it is that you're trying to grow. So, all right. Let's see here. Girlfriend texted ex. Uh-oh. Mm-hmm. Been an RR fan since day one. Used to listen to him and SVP walking around Ohio State's campus back in 2009. She doesn't listen. You can keep it all in. All right, 6'6". Nice. 235. Dirk. Mainly because I was the tallest person in my small town I grew up in and could shoot. Elbow and baseline fadeaways and wing threes were my specialty. All-star games and some D3 offers. Started a new job recently. TA for a regional company. Gig is great, doing well on salary now compared to commission-based sales, where I also did well. Free trips to Cancun, profit shares. Quit my job and had to go to Indy for training on the new one. When I was gone, my girlfriend of 4 years, and I got in an argument. I wasn't drinking at the time, but she was, and then went off on me for breaking her trash can where there's no proof that I did. Became a huge argument, and then the next day everything was fine. Got home, and a month later she was super sketchy about her phone. She's never been like that. We live in a big college town, Columbus, Ohio, and her brother played there back in the day. It was driving me nuts. So I went through her Apple Watch and found she was texting her ex who lives in Cali. Boy, this guy doesn't care. He wants us to share all of it. All right. That she was there for 7 years before moving back to Ohio when she met me. I asked her when she last talked to him. She said she couldn't remember. It's clearly a lie. He's 2,500 miles away. So I'm not threatened, but her mom lives there, so she could easily go see him. She also texted the guy who she didn't say anything wrong to, but he was clearly flirting with her, wanted to cool off with the keyboard scene. What's that mean?
I have no idea. I hate that I don't know, but I don't know.
Yeah, I need you guys. We live together, have a condo. I don't know if I could trust her, though, and I would stay in Columbus. I graduated. She wants me to propose and wants to start a family, but I don't know if I can trust her. What would you do? It's a lot of stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's that serious. Oh, this is all because of a fucking garbage can, man. Must have been one hell of a receptacle.
Well, it sounds like he's with somebody that when they drink, like certain things aren't off the table. That's what it sounds like. Maybe it's a fight, slams the door you're in separate rooms, and she pulls out her phone and fires something off. I don't know. And then maybe she zooms out the next day and she's like, oh, what the fuck? So that's the kind of person that she is. And I think there's a lot more of those people out there than you want to admit, or that those people would want to admit. So it might not be that she's a devious person, but if she gets into some extracurriculars and then, bad ideas become not so bad ideas. That's maybe what it sounds like. So I don't know.
Wait, just for clarification, what do we know what the texts were to the guy? We just saw that there were text messages.
Yeah, well, she said that one guy was definitely flirting with her. The second guy, it wasn't that big of a deal. Got home, some sketchy, was driving me nuts. Found out she was texting her ex. I asked her so she lied about talking to him. So it wasn't, he didn't even say necessarily what was in there. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what's in there. Hey, I'm going to meet up or whatever. Or like, this guy sucks. I don't want to live with him anymore. He smashed my trash can. I mean, there's levels to it. Now, some people would see it as like a complete betrayal just to be talking to anybody. I think
kind of is.
Yeah, there's a case to be made. There's a case to be made. But especially if they live in the same town as they live in the same town as the mom. Maybe she always liked Derek, and she's just like, I saw Derek the other day. He helped me put my AC in. I don't know. There could be
Derek
reasons,
sounds like a solid guy. But
in the most part, yeah, you could make a case to be like, yeah, you shouldn't be messing around with this type of stuff.
Okay, but would you not marry a person because of this?
No.
Well, I feel like this is always the case where, we obviously don't know this person. How out of character is this for her? If are there other things? Is there a reason that you went to her phone because she was acting sketchy? Like have you suspected something like this before? If this is totally out of nowhere and not like her, then I think you kind of let it slide as like a kind of a one-off thing. Maybe she was having a bad night. She really liked that. Maybe it was a 2-in-1. Maybe there's a recycling situation going on in that trash can. Could have been awesome. There's one right next to me. I love it. If somebody messed with that, I'd be pissed off.
$150 Simple Human.
Yeah, that's what it is. Well, yeah, you get you got it on sale at Bed Bath & Beyond when they're going out.
Sure,
of
Black
so
Friday.
It wasn't $150, but it is a nice one. But yeah, if she's done this before and you don't trust her, then yeah, that's this might be the beginning of the end. So it depends on we don't have all the information here, but you have to ask yourself all right, is this just one blip of not trusting, or is there a habit of her kind of going behind your back on things that I need to maybe be a little bit more aware of and take a little bit more seriously?
And the question also was not am I in the wrong here? It was I'm thinking about marrying this person. What do you think about marriage? Some guys get married 6-7 times. Other guys will never do it because they're just I can't imagine. So if you're there's definitely a spectrum for how you feel about marriage. And if
6 or 7 times,
some guys, you don't think? There's guys out there in their 70s who are on their 6th marriage, I think. So
yeah, those people are really throwing off the stats too, by the way, because
that's what I mean. I was just giving you, the polar opposites here.
Yeah, I get you. I got you.
So
imagine getting divorced 5 times and then being like, yeah, I'll do this again.
I can't imagine inviting people to that. I can't imagine throwing that many weddings.
You can't.
How many times can you get divorced before you could actually have a normal wedding too? Because I've had this conversation with with some friends who've not 3 times, but twice. It's like, all right, how many weddings do you really get in your life? Can you be excited about the third one? Like, do you do the whole ensemble and you invite the 150
Do you have
people?
friends that have been
Tom Brady had
divorced
2
twice already?
retirements. I think
No. But like, I know people who are in that situation. We'll just keep it vague. And it's like, man, we're going to do the wedding thing again. Like,
at that point, I think
I
only
wouldn't
your
wanna
family
do that.
comes. Just your family comes in. I think it's
you just, I wouldn't want anybody around. I'd be like, hey guys, we're married. Just
this is
FYI.
embarrassing, actually. Like, I don't.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right on that.
Guys are
one.
gonna be taking bets at my fucking third wedding. Right.
Like, this person's such a fucking narcissist. Like, what is this? 250 plus black tie affair? It's like your 4th time, huh?
Yeah.
You really like these, huh? Yeah, I don't know if we helped a ton there. Very little.
Nope.
I don't know. It just sounds
do you
like
confront her though? I mean, I guess maybe throw that out there.
you already know she's lied. Yeah, that sort of
Yeah.
sucks. But he did go through her stuff, which we're not usually a fan of here. I think the only time I've really felt good about saying maybe check it out was when the guy's wife and kids went missing. Right,
It's reasonable.
Yeah, I think that one was like maybe I'll just peruse here and see if there's a clue.
I hate to break this rule, but
Find
yeah.
the thread here.
Yeah, that one I'm like, yeah, I think that would be fine. Did I tell you guys about the time when a friend of mine called me but didn't realize they had called me and they were in the car with my ex talking about me?
Jesus.
And so I answered the phone.
How does
That
this shit
sounds
happen,
gross,
man?
man.
This is another example of like this shit happen. Like, this is the only thing that would happen to Ryan.
It's that talk to text shit right there. I don't know what that is.
No, it was
How
a
do you even
call.
pull
The call came in and I answered it, and then I could just hear 2 people talking about me, and then I knew, and then I heard my ex say something like, "Well,
No.
I wanted to move," and I was like, "Do you really want to listen to this?" I'm like, "You're going to get some answers to stuff. You're going to get some They're going to be a bunch of mysteries solved, and perhaps a few mysteries added to the to-do list."
It's good intel though for the scouting report in the future.
Yeah, I just went. I'm not going to.
Do you really
this.
have time or energy to get to the bottom of this?
Well, it was like a good 8 seconds, and I was like, what are you going to get out of this?
Did you ever tell them it happened?
I told my friend. I didn't tell the ex.
Yeah. Ugh.
She was like, "You hung up?" I go, yeah. She's like,
Power
"I can't
move,
believe
though.
you hung up."
I think
Yeah.
you got a little of your power back by doing that.
Yeah. Then it was kind of like, "Did you hang up so you could tell me you hung up so you sounded cool?" I'm like,
I thought about
what
it.
is that? Bottom
Right back
line is I
in the
hung up.
shits.
Let's do one more. Whatever. 6'2", 195. Player comp Royce O'Neal. Don't have any impressive gym stats, but I love my bicep pump. Good for you. 24 years old. I have some trouble finding balance in my life. A little background. I graduated college 4 months ago. And as of a month ago, was accepted in medical school because of my goal of being a physician one day. I sort of turned into a lone wolf when I started college, constantly studying and working on this goal. Now that I'm done with school, I've realized how closed off I was for the last 4 years. I barely have any friends and don't have very many hobbies other than hitting the gym and watching games. I wanted to ask you guys what suggestions you might have for someone in my position.
Classic.
When you guys look back, do you wish you had been more social and gotten to know more people, or would you have rather stayed focused on the grind? I imagine the answer is a mix of the two. Any advice would be much appreciated. I just wanted to hear what you guys think is the most important things to focus on at my age. No, I did go to BYU, so going out and going to the bars isn't really an option. Haha, go Cougs. I don't see an issue with any of this. Med school's tough, man. Like, there were guys in pre-med at UVM that we didn't see all the time. And that blew our minds. Like, there was one engineering guy in the group and he couldn't really do anything. He was constantly engineering. And then some of the pre-med guys, like, it wasn't until the very end of a semester that you would see them. So you've made a massive commitment, unless you're just so gifted. And I don't even know how that works, but you're just so gifted that you sort of just get it all. You get everything, and then you don't have to. I think that's probably fairly rare. So,
and the BYU, interesting wrinkle, right? I mean, how much fun
Right.
did you really have had?
Intramural sports.
No, I'm not saying,
Unbelievable opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmer would tell you he had a great time. But this is the age. I mean, the cool thing is you're going to be a doctor. So I guess, like, you know, most people who are bummed out about their college experience also don't have a doctorate. So that's awesome. But I guess it's like does being a doctor and having no friends outweigh not having an awesome college experience.
I think people want to have be friends with a doctor, though. I don't know. Maybe
I would agree.
Maybe remember how I used to go out to bars with my suit on in college? Maybe you just go straight from work lab coat. Yeah, you're right.
Scrubs?
Maybe scrubs, or maybe just
People
the
are
ID
like, is this
badge.
Halloween?
ID badge is just hanging from your pocket or something.
Like, I'll put that away. Yeah, put that away. Yeah.
Shit, got such a long day. Days are blending together.
I know. Saved so many lives today.
In the emergency room. Right. But I don't know. You're still young and you get to do this part. A lot of guys do this part with no money and no prospects, and you're doing it like finished and probably making decent money. I know you got loans, but who doesn't? So I don't know. I think like we already said, the BYU part, how much could you really have done? You could have got yourself in some serious trouble. I mean, I thought Potsdam was strict. I can't imagine getting caught doing stuff at BYU. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's classic to wonder if you did this wrong. I know I probably did my shit wrong. I would go back for, academic success instead of all the time I used doing other stuff. So
what would you do? What would you like? You
I was thinking, would I actually do more extracurriculars? I probably would have got a better skill than a communications degree, which I'm not sure the communications department really even knows. I was like, wait, so I just will be HR one day? Like, I don't know. Not sure.
The communication degree is
it's a little bit of a joke, right? Yeah, come on.
I'll be honest. And listen, I'm two comms degree guys here. Like half of there's people that I graduated with that are on like network news channels, and there are people that literally just didn't even get into the business. It's very strange.
I don't know. I would have just tried a little harder, I think. Probably in high school too. I would have tried a little harder because then I really realized how limited those college things were. Like my dad yelled at me that I applied to Albany. He was like, "You're not getting in there. What the fuck? You just wasted $50." I was like, "Wow,
did you not get in
there?" Yeah, Dad, I didn't get in. Didn't get in.
No.
Didn't get in.
They're lost, dude.
I think the other thing, though, the point that we should get to here is that you probably need to find a way to do a better job of the people in your department that are in your school and all have the same stresses and all have the same brutal schedules. Like, I totally get it. You didn't have the same undergrad experience that other guys did, but you decided very early on this is something you want to pursue and you're on the path to it. And that's going to be part of the sacrifice, that you can't just get weird on a Thursday because your commitment to your schooling is that much more, it's just the schedule, man. It's brutal. Like, I even knew some girls that were in physical therapy, and then as they progressed through the school and PT training, like, we would never see them. We saw them like the first couple of years, and then they'd be like, "Did they transfer?" It's like, no, like, that's what it is. And I know it sucks, but I think you'll feel better for it down the road. But as far as being in med school, find people, like, try to be social within that group, because I think all of you are going through the same things. You'll understand the sacrifices that you're making. And maybe it's just something where you say, hey, once every 6 weeks or something, let's make sure we find a break.
Yeah, do trivia. Be the guy that gets trivia night started.
Does it have to be that dorky?
Dude, trivia is awesome. What are you talking about?
Is trivia awesome?
Yeah. You guys
I'll tell you what's awesome.
Nights?
Being in a
I'm
bar
open to it.
that does trivia that you didn't know about. That's kind of cool. I think that's cool. I was
surprise
like, trivia night?
Wait, so you think trying to go to trivia sucks, but accidentally doing trivia is awesome?
I just meant it was a nice surprise for me in the last month. I was like, oh fuck, it's turning into like a flash mob, but it's trivia. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so rank them. Appointment trivia, surprise trivia.
Well, surprise trivia is awesome. I mean, I'm not gonna argue with you on that, but
so you think?
I just thought it was funny that it was your first exam. Your first exam.
I love doctors, trivia, dude. Trivial Pursuit.
Doctors and probably nerds.
Yeah.
I would get texts from people all the time cheating, being like, "Hey, I'm at trivia night. Who is Kirk Gibson or something like that?" What's dorkier? Trivia or group karaoke off at Butterfly in West Hartford?
Oh my
all the music,
God.
The music and theater kids from Hartford, and then ESPN being in the mix, because that thing was insane.
It was. I would say, man, That's tough because
that sounds dorkier than trivia. I mean, I wasn't there, but come on.
But it was like kind of awesome, and I only went a couple times because it was a shit show, and it could be really fun. But I'm not. It's not for me. Like I guess I'm more of a dork because I like the trivia thing. But I don't think that's dorky. I guess that it's probably the trivia thing. But
you said theater kids. Were they doing like queuing up like numbers from Cats or something, or was it like
and like they'd have enough microphones that like one group was like battle karaokeing the other group, and they all had the fucking routine down. And I went once because everybody talked about like how crazy it was. I think I just gone through a breakup and somebody's like, oh, you should come out. You should come out. I was like, this is making it way worse. I'm going to go home. But it was just on. And you would have thought if it were an episode of Glee and you were like, hey, you're just going to be an extra and this is going to be an episode of Glee, I would have believed it. It was so coordinated. It was so intense. And people were actually really good too. But then there'd be like an ESPN dude that would get in the mix or whatever every now and then. But that thing, I'm glad I saw it. I never wanted to go again. And I wasn't going to sing a song either. So
there's something kind of badass though. Maybe you guys are going to laugh at this, but like if you're killing it at trivia, like you just know all these like cool history facts and I don't know, that's like a powerful feeling. When
it's great to feel smart.
Yeah.
All right. You've got me sold.
Yeah. Group trivia. We'll plan this. Ryan's house, maybe.
All right. Yeah, we'll do it at my place.
Over said, yeah.
Yeah, let me get some questions.
Perfect.
Next time I see you guys. That'd be great. All right, that'll do it for Life Advice. We want Friday feedback. We're going to tape live. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll just tape it and it'll be. I don't know why I would say live.
In Denver.
We could probably pull it off live, but it's not important for it to be live. Friday feedback, rr@gmail.com. So any questions there, we'll go through it. And sounded like Ceruti had something else there.
No, just tape it. We're going to tape it on Wednesday. Should drop probably Thursday or into Friday. So get them in before then.
All right. Sounds good. We got Big Cat after the college football committee rankings. Something else big going on Tuesday too. Busy week. So yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, that's right. The trade deadline. That's what I was thinking of. Thanks to Wargon. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Ceruti, the Ryen Russillo podcast, our YouTube page, and Ringer Spotify.